That we're going to give immunity to police so they can do their job. I'm giving federal immunity to police officers so they can do their job. We're going to give our police their power back, and we're going to give them immunity from prosecution.
We return now to the very tragic story of a woman killed by a sheriff's deputy after she called 911 asking for help.
We see this video with our own eyes. And Vlad, this is one of the worst videos of a police shooting ever.
What is your last name? Shouldn't have to think about your last name.
The situation quickly escalating when Massey is asked to remove a pot of boiling water from the stove.
Huh? Where are you going? Away from your hot steaming water.
Away from my hot steaming water?
Yeah.
Oh, I rebuke you in the name of Jesus.
I
rebuke you in the name of Jesus.
You better not. I swear to God, I'll shoot you right in your face.
Okay, I'm sorry.
Drop the pot! Drop the pot!
Grayson fired from the force and indicted on 3 counts of first-degree murder and aggravated battery charges.
And one of the things I'm doing is giving local police immunity from prosecution. They get prosecuted. When they do their job, they get like your soldiers.
If you aren't aware, amidst the torrent of political news circulating, there was a police shooting that occurred in Illinois last week, resulting in the tragic death of a 36-year-old black woman by the name of Sonya Massey, who had initially called 911 for help. Well, this week police released the 36-minute body cam footage showing the incident as Massey allows then Officer Sean Grayson and another deputy, whose name authorities haven't revealed yet, to enter her home. Now, there's some dispute over showing videos like such or not, but I won't show the full footage, as I also understand that it can be triggering in a country in which far too many times the unjust killing of a black person at the hands of police is broadcast and can inflict trauma on people. But I'll talk you through it. At one point in the video, Sean Grayson appears to point his finger towards Sonya Massey's kitchen, where a pot of boiling water is sitting on the stove. As Massey moves to grab the pot off the stove, one of the deputies can be heard saying, "We don't need a fire while we're here." During the conversation, Massey then says, quote, "I rebuke you in the name of Jesus," to which Officer Grayson from across the room told her that she'd better not, or he'd, quote, "shoot her in the effing face." Massey immediately apologized, and as Grayson pulls out his gun and points it at her, she's seen crouching down. And this is where Grayson fired 3 shots, one of which hit Sonya Massey in the face. Now, this officer did not have his body cam on until after the shooting, while the other deputy's body cam recorded the entire encounter.
I was under the impression that a prowler had broke in and killed my baby. Never did they say there was a deputy involved shooting until my brother read it on the internet. He shared with me, he said, "Brother, what was Sonya's address?" I told him, and he said to me, "This says this is a deputy involved shooting." I said, "Deputy involved shooting? What are you talking about?"
And that's what the state attorney's investigation found, that he actually engaged her. He could have done so many things to not shoot her in the face. He could have backed up. He could have used taser. I mean, it was the size difference. Vlad and Gail, he's over 2 times as big as her. She's 5'1", 110 pounds. He's like 6'5", 260 pounds. It's just senseless and god-awful.
Mr. Crump, it's Tony DeCopel. We've talked to you on numerous occasions in cases like this. There have been others as well, and yet you're right, this is a particularly shocking video. What do you think the larger issue is? Why do we keep having these conversations? Why do we keep seeing these videos?
We certainly think it's the implicit bias that permeates in American society now. And when we think about what's going on with the presidential politics in 2020, it was the George Floyd torture video that galvanized people in our community to act. In 2024, I believe it's going to be the Sonya Massey shooting video that galvanizes people in our community to act, because, as Mr. James said, this so-called police officer should have never been on the sheriff's force.
Now, the video is harrowing and you could see it online, but it was enough evidence for a grand jury to indict Sean Grayson on 3 counts of first-degree murder and 1 count each of aggravated battery with a firearm and official misconduct. Now, there's a few things I wanted to discuss, right, regarding this infuriating altercation. Not to mention the fact that how many times is a black woman going to be killed in her own home? Massey is one of a number of black women who have been killed by police in their own homes in recent years, including Breonna Taylor and Tatiana Jefferson. But the other thing I wanted to discuss is there's a reason the few bad apples claim doesn't hold any water, right? When you take into account the history in this situation of Officer Sean Grayson. The man who killed Sonya Massey was working at his 6th police department in just under 4 years, while also being convicted of 2 DUIs.
We're learning new details about the former deputy who was fired after the deadly shooting of a black woman in Illinois. Sonya Massey called 911 saying she suspected a possible intruder outside her home. Body camera video shows deputies responding to Massey's house. Shots were fired after she picked up what appears to be a pot of boiling water from her stove. The family says Massey was unarmed. The former deputy, Sean Grayson, has pleaded not guilty to charges including first-degree murder. He was arrested and remains in custody. Now, new original reporting from NBC News finds Grayson worked for 6 law enforcement agencies since 2020. That's according to Illinois law enforcement records, and even had his own previous run-ins with the law. NBC News national reporter Janelle Griffith is behind this new reporting. So, Janelle, walk us through what exactly you found out about Grayson's past.
So yes, he actually had pleaded guilty twice to driving under the influence of alcohol, once in 2015 and again in 2016. And one of those times overlapped with when he was enlisted in the Army, and he was released shortly thereafter. He was discharged. And he also, I found at one of those departments, had been disciplined for striking a deer in a police chase that sheriff's office had said was his fault. They said that he had violated a number of department policies in the chase, and he had also faced 2 unsubstantiated complaints by 2 citizens, filed by 2 citizens.
So pretty remarkable findings. And I imagine, Janelle, the family has thoughts about this. What have we heard from the Masseys, as well as their lawyer, who, of course, is prominent civil rights attorney Ben Crump?
Yes. So Ben and Sonia's family are saying, why was this man allowed to work in law enforcement at all? They said he left the Army under questionable circumstances, and he had been pleaded guilty to 2 DUIs himself. So was he the most suitable person to be in a uniform? And they're calling for accountability. And they believe that had he not been a part of the sheriff's office, that Sonya might still be alive right now.
To that end, really briefly, Janelle, have we heard from the sheriff's office on this, on your new reporting?
No, they have not said. Actually, his most recent employer is the only one that has not provided me his records. All 5 other departments have gotten back to me with his personnel files, but the Sangamon County Sheriff's Office has not as of yet.
Janelle Griffith, great reporting. Thanks so much.
It leads me to my next and final point, right? Just a few months ago, during a rally in New Hampshire, Trump gave a speech where he vowed to give police officers complete and total immunity. You know, the type that he wants to give himself. Which again leads to the relevance and importance of this upcoming election. Under a second Trump term, if successful, there'd be no grand jury charges holding this former officer to account for his actions. Actions that in the wake of the incident, he didn't seem too remorseful.
The local police are great. They're just not allowed to do their job. They're afraid of losing their pension. They're afraid of losing their wife or husband. They're going to lose their house. They're losing everything. And one of the things I'm doing is giving local police immunity from prosecution. They get prosecuted. When they do their job, they get like your soldiers. We're going to rebuild our cities. We're going to bring them back like they used to be, and we're going to make them safe places again. We're going to give our police their power back, and we're going to give them immunity from prosecution. So they're not prosecuted for doing their job. We'll take over the horribly run capital of our country, Washington, D.C., and clean up, renovate, and rebuild our capital city so that it's no longer a nightmare of murder and crime.
In a second Trump presidency, those already at risk of suffering from police violence can also assume that if violence were to occur, then justice would be almost impossible. Where an officer shooting a woman from across the room can be considered as him just doing his job.
Today, in all caps, he ranted, quote, "A president of the United States must have full immunity. Even events that cross the line must fall under total immunity." Which sure sounds like a tacit admission of guilt, doesn't it? In a bizarre analogy, he compared himself to a dirty cop. Quote, "You can't stop police from doing the job of strong and effective crime prevention because you want to guard against the occasional rogue cop or bad apple. Sometimes you just have to live with great but slightly imperfect." And then for good measure, he ended with a not-so-subtle message to the 6-3 MAGA majority. Quote, "Hopefully this will be an easy decision. God bless the Supreme Court."
Hey, Meidas Mighty. Love this report? Continue the conversation by following us on Instagram @MeidasTouch to keep up with the most important news of the day. What are you waiting for? Follow us now.